John has a few comments about what happens immediately following this conversation with the woman at the well, and then we will get into the second of the 7 signs, which is the healing of the nobleman's son. And so that's what's before us this morning. Should be action-packed, and I've asked Matt, if he will, to open our class with prayer. Amen. Thank you. So immediately following this conversation with the woman at the well, John has a few additional details, a few thoughts on what occurred right after that. So if somebody would, it's a decent reading, somebody would read chapter 4, 27 through 42. 27 through 42. Somebody would read that for us, please. Okay, thank you very much for reading that. Verses 27 through 30, the disciples return. They are amazed that he is talking with a woman, right? They had been away. They had went to get food. We read that earlier. And they come back, and they are amazed. They don't dare ask him why, which I think is interesting. And then it makes the point that she leaves her water pot. I think this is fascinating. This was the whole reason she came, right? She came to get water. She goes at a different time than everybody else goes to get her water, and yet she forgot it. And she ran out into town and said, "Come see a man which told me all things I'd ever done. Is this the Christ?" And the people come streaming out to him. The fact that she left that water pot, I mean, that's a sermon in herself, right? She left something better. She was excited, right? She had got something better. She was excited, absolutely. What an amazing thing. And she couldn't wait to tell others. I think that's an important part of that. Could not wait to get out there and tell others. I did have an interesting question for the class, though, about this. Why do you think they listened to her? You know, I feel like through this whole story, we've talked about how she's kind of outcast. She's not part of the group. But now she just kind of goes running into town, telling her story, and all of a sudden everybody's coming out and listening to her and wanting to hear what she says. Like, why do you think they did that? Why do you think they decided to listen to her?
Well, I think she was probably, like we talked about last class, she probably kept to herself a lot. Probably wasn't very outspoken. Now all of a sudden they see her running through the streets, having something to say, and what she has to say is very important. She's very adamant
That's a great point. I didn't even thought of that. I think it's an excellent point. So she, because of her being outcast, of her being away from the people, she didn't have a lot of interaction, probably didn't speak with them a lot, and now she's running through the town excited and telling her story, and so they're wondering what's going on. That's a great point. Let me get Amanda first. She beat you. Now go for it. Correct, because of kind of the message she was giving, it was something that they had wanted and hoped for, and yeah, it's a great point.
Also, told them that a Jew talked to them.
Okay. Ooh,
They're not supposed to,
very good.
but they listen.
So just a lot of things going on there. A Jew had talked to her. Man, that's an interesting point. Very good. Yes, Ms. Carroll.
She said that her people were looking for the Messiah because he was going to save the world. And so she was, like others have said, she was excited. She wanted her fellow Samaritans to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Her people had been looking for this, right? They'd been hoping for this. This is what she was claiming had happened. So they were listening to her.
And Jesus told her, I am he.
Yeah.
Verse 1, it says that Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John. His ministry was building up, and John had been preparing the way, and now he's making disciples. So undoubtedly, a lot of these people had heard what was going on and were aware. So seeing this reaction from this woman probably really stirred up a lot of
Yeah, great point. Those are all good, for sure. I think that makes a lot of sense. Verses 31 and 34. Meanwhile, the disciples urge him to eat, right? And he answers them, I have meat to eat that you know not of. My meat is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish his work. So we saw there at the top of the chapter, he had been wearied, he had been thirsty, right? And now he's so energized by this interaction, this conversation that he has with this woman, food is put on hold. Food can wait, right? Reaching this lost woman had fed him. I think that's such an amazing, powerful point there of what his true mission was, what he was here to do, seeking and saving people. It literally, and then also you see his deity and his humanity all in one here as well. I just think such a powerful statement made there by John. And we see that. Verse 35 through 38, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white, ready to harvest. Don't say 4 more months to harvest. Look up. The Samaritans are already coming across the fields towards him. Once again, Jesus teaching on evangelism here, right? He's teaching to the men that he's going to be sending out into the world. Look, here's how you do it. Nobody would have picked this woman. Nobody would have picked this town. But it was ripe for harvest. It was ready. It was there, ready to go. So he's telling them once again, don't prejudge who's ready. There's hungry people out there who want the truth. Preach it to everyone. 39 through 42, many Samaritans believed because of the woman's testimony. We talked about that. They begged him to stay, and he stayed 2 days. I think that's pretty impressive too. A pretty strong statement. Jesus was very busy, right? He was fulfilling his mission. He was doing his ministry. For him to have stayed here 2 days, to add to that. I think that says a lot about and adds to the story some. And because of that, many more believed, and not only believed, they started believing for themselves, not just because they'd heard the woman in the story, but because Jesus had been with them. He'd been with them 2 days. They both started believing for themselves. So I think that is good. I think you also through this see a progression of faith, right? They hear it from the woman first, so they have this kind of firsthand conviction, but then they see it for themselves. They encountered it. They came in contact with it. So their faith continues to grow. I think it's important. Jesus is planting the seed, absolutely. Through that woman, she plants it. And I think it even points out a little more here. This seed that is planted keeps on reaping harvest in the future because it is referenced. I mean, you see this in the book of Acts, in Acts chapter 8. If you remember there, the gospel booms in Samaria. Philip there leading the teaching that is going on at the time there. And all that started through this one conversation. Like Miss Carol said, Jesus planting the seed and going out and about. The barriers that Jesus broke down here continuing to be broken because of him and what he's done. Okay, yes, the disciples were baptizing there too as well. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
You mentioned last time, something about racial and prejudices and that type of stuff. Breaking barriers, I mean, you just spoke woman at the well, but more than in the chapter, in that section she's read, stayed with them 2 days, so people have been eating there and sleeping there, and that's more than breaking barriers. That's like moving in with Samaritan type thing to teach and preach, and you see the outcome.
Yeah,
Just a matter of getting out of the comfort zone.
it's a great point.
For us.
Absolutely. That was my next question. The lesson for us, where's our Samaria, right? Where's the place we need to be going? Who are the people that we have chosen as, they're probably not going to listen to the word. They're probably not going to hear. I'm not going to go over there. Who are these people? Is there an area that's ripe for harvest? I'm not saying you have to answer that this morning out loud, but I think it's something that we think about in ourselves. Who are we not? Yes.
And I think I've underlined the words we know, because, so many of his own people doubted that he was who he was. And if these Samaritans, whom they thought was underclass or whatever, said that we know that he is indeed the Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, they recognized him as that, and his own people, so many just doubted.
Correct. They were willing and eager to listen to Jesus. Absolutely. You never know. That's the lesson. Absolutely. You never know. People that you think would absolutely be on board and ready to listen, sometimes rejecting, and people that you thought would never step foot in here be the first ones to come in and accept him and obey him and put that on as their life. Absolutely. You don't know, and that's what Jesus is teaching here for us. Absolutely. Great point.
Gentiles, they don't even, they're unclean, they're drinking after them. I don't, you know what I mean? I'm
Yeah,
trying to say,
absolutely.
that was kind of cool too, because he stayed and then, of course, he's touching all their unclean things. It doesn't matter to Jesus.
No. Jesus was not concerned about the things of the Samaritans that Jews didn't like, whether it be unclean or whatever. He was there to save them.
And that was probably
Absolutely. He said 2 days.
give him food and he touched it and they're clean.
Absolutely. Great point. Yep.
Spiritual eyes, so were the Samaritans. They were not looking at physical like the Jews were at this time.
Both sides looking through spiritual eyes. Whew, that's good. Very good. Yeah, I agree. So just a little conclusion to kind of wrap up this section, this talking with the woman at the well. If you remember, Jesus spoke to Nicodemus at night. He spoke to the one at the well in the middle of the day. Pretty stark contrast there. I think it's important to keep in mind about those two people. Think back to the prologue for a minute, and specifically I'm going back to John chapter 1 and verse 14. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. At this well, grace and truth are dwelling here among a Samaritan village. Such a powerful thing. He tells her plainly who she is, and he tells her plainly who he is. Right? Grace, he crosses every wall to seek her anyway. So we see those together, just as John promised in John chapter 1. We're seeing them come together here, together as one. Lived out in this story. I think it's so powerful. Were you want to say something?
Well, I'm just gonna ask a question, see if you can study a little bit about, she says, in verse 25, she said, I know the Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ, and then later,
Well, I think she actually said, and she actually said Messiah, and that he who is called Christ is in parentheses. So I don't know if that's a kind of a clarifying remark there that is being made. Somebody, I did not study that specifically. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think she actually said Messiah. That would be my take on that. And John does a clarifying remark. Yeah, Messiah. That would be my take on that. Correct. Yep, absolutely. Very good. Then finally, we see this picture in this lesson of a seeking God. He was tired. He was thirsty. He was sitting at a well at noon. Yet he struck up a conversation with the person everybody least expected. It's what the love of God, one of the things I read says this is what the love of God looks like on an ordinary afternoon. I thought that was an interesting way of putting it. Our Lord and Savior always seeking the lost, regardless of his physical condition. Did not matter. That was his mission and his purpose.
Everybody heard said similarly to this and other things, but you don't necessarily have to go. You don't have to go out and preach Jesus. Just preach Jesus while you're at it.
Yes,
Just live it.
exactly.
It's just the way you act. You don't have to set aside certain amounts of time and go set up this designated Bible study and invite people in. That's great. Just preach Jesus while you're at it.
Absolutely. Live it daily.
With her leaving her pot there, assuming she's already got water in it, that she had
I mean, I definitely think there's a strong reference there that she was replacing that physical water in her pot with the living water. Yeah, you could definitely have a sermon on that. You could have multiple sermons on this story, for sure. Absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm. Correct. Correct. They only accepted, John, you can help me with this, the first 5 books of the Bible, correct? That was the only ones that they actually took in and accepted. And so, based on that, they came to the conclusion they were looking for a prophet who would come and teach them all things. Yes. Yep. 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 Very good. Does that help? So moving on in our story, kind of here at the bottom of this chapter, I think it's kind of interesting. John tucks in kind of the second of the 7 signs, and so I think we definitely need to look at that. Is very important. Keep in mind, John keeps a scorecard here, right? He's counting these. He tells us plainly this is the second one. We know that doesn't mean Jesus only had 2 miracles. We've talked about this, but there were many signs. Nicodemus was drew to Jesus by all the miracles that were being done, but John handpicked 7 that he thought were the most important, the ones that would teach Jesus was deity. Remember, that's the whole point of this book, that we would believe that Jesus is the Son of God. So if somebody would, let's read John chapter 4, 43 through 54. Verses 43 through 54. Okay, so right off the bat, 43 through 45, Jesus says there that a prophet has no honor in his hometown. But the Galileans seem to just be accepting him with open arms. I mean, they love he's there. They're excited about what's going on. So what do you kind of make of that contradiction? Why is Jesus saying those? Why are we seeing those 2 different things there?
Well, people didn't believe in his hometown.
People didn't believe in his hometown. Probably referencing Nazareth a little bit there. Yep, I think so. People struggled to believe. Right. Interesting. So now here are the Galileans. They're excited, but what are they actually excited about? They're excited about his miracles, right? Yeah, they weren't necessarily as excited about what Jesus had to say. They were very excited about the miracles and the spectacle that was going on and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, they wanted more, right? They were showing that their faith was very shallow there, here the Galileans were. Verse 46, Jesus comes back to Cana of Galilee. Remember, this is a place where he turned water into wine. So a royal official, a nobleman, one of the things I read said he was likely in Herod's service. I don't know that we know that for sure. Regardless, he had a son lying sick at Capernaum about 20 miles away. The man doesn't wait for Jesus to come to Capernaum. His son's very ill, right? His son's very ill, probably about to die, so he's not going to wait. He hears Jesus in Cana. He hurries to him. So we see his desperate faith. Verse 48, Jesus' first reply could be almost construed here as a rebuke. He says, except ye see signs and wonders, you will not believe. But what's Jesus actually saying there? What is the you there? That you, was he talking directly to the nobleman? Yeah, that you there is plural, right? He's not talking directly to the nobleman. He's talking to the people that are here. He's talking to the crowd. He's talking about their desire for spectacle. This nobleman was about to show us the opposite of what this crowd wanted. I didn't look into that. I don't know if anybody knows exactly. Yeah, I was more towards Roman, I think. But, yep. Yep. Yeah, I agree. Ruler. Yep. Yeah, I think so. 49 through 50, the man presses, Sir, come down before my child dies. Jesus does not go. He simply says, Go thy way, thy son liveth. And the text says that the man believed and went. Interesting. Notice the growth in his faith just to this point, right? He came thinking that Jesus had to go to his house or wherever his sick son was to heal him. But now he is learning that he didn't have to do that. Jesus could heal him from afar. Did not have to happen that way. Distance was no obstacle. Verse 51 through 53, on the road home, his servants meet him. His boy is well. So, he kind of asked the question, kind of interesting, well, when did he start getting to feel better? Like, can I line up that this actually happened when I spoke with Jesus? And he says that yesterday at the 7th hour, Miss Carol is our official clock keeper, so she's going to tell us what time that was. 1 p.m. That was 1 p.m., absolutely. And that happened to be the exact hour Jesus spoke. And because of that, he and his whole household believed. So I think John presses on two things here. He presses on the man's faith, and he presses on the precision of the miracle. The son was healed at the very moment Jesus gave the command. They proved that through the timing. They knew, hey, this happened when Jesus said it. There was no delay. There was no room to argue. There was no room for any of that. It happened when Jesus said it. Nobody could get credit for this but Jesus. Oh. that's an excellent point. His son was on his deathbed. He gave up his position quickly, and saw Jesus as above him. Absolutely, very good. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the points John is driving home here, that he's wanting them to see that it doesn't have to be there. Absolutely. So what's the sign that Jesus is preaching here? If we're to break this down, John is wanting to teach us that Jesus is deity, that he's the Son of God. He's sharing this miracle that's happened. We know that a sign means that Jesus is preaching a sermon. He's giving us a message. What's the message? What's he telling us? Don't stop at having shallow faith. Our faith always needs to grow, right? This man's faith continued to grow throughout this whole story.
Also, he's teaching believe on me.
Believe in Jesus, absolutely. Believe in me. Believe in me even before you see a miracle, right? Believe in me because of who I am and who I say I am. Very good. What else? Jesus has power over distance. I think that's absolutely true. Jesus is not defined by any physical nature or whatever. Absolutely, he's not built into that. Jesus only had to speak. Absolutely, Jesus only had to speak. He is the Word. He is absolutely the Word. Yep. We have to decide that Jesus' Word, I think we have to decide, one of the things John's teaching here is that Jesus' Word is enough. That Jesus' Word alone is enough. He can do miracle after miracle, and you can see that the people shallowly believed. I don't think that's the word. You know what I'm trying to say, though? Absolutely. I think we talked about it a little bit. Genuine faith grows. You know, the Father's faith develops in stages. He believes Jesus can heal if he comes. He believes Jesus' word without seeing evidence. He discovers the miracle occurred at the exact hour Jesus spoke it. He and his entire household believe because of that. See that with the Samaritans. Their faith grew, right? Faith grew from hope to trust to full conviction eventually. Yep.
Abraham believed God and was counted to him as righteousness.
Right. Doing things the way he's asked us to do it. Believing in him. Absolutely. All of that. Absolutely.
Faith of a single person can influence many.
Absolutely. Yeah, we see that here. Very true. Faith of a single person can influence a great deal of people and how that kind of grows. Absolutely. I think another even message is that life comes through Jesus. right? Life comes through him. The repeated phrase that John used here over and over again was, your son will live. He uses that over and over again. Life comes through Jesus. Throughout John's gospel, we've already seen it. We'll continue to see it. Jesus is revealed as the giver of life. Not only physical, but certainly spiritual life. Miracle points to Jesus' greater mission. And I think fifth, we've talked about it a little bit, continue to talk about it, faith based on Jesus is greater than faith based on miracles. Right? Compare the two stories in John chapter 4. The Samaritans believed because they heard Jesus' word. They even said, we no longer believe just because of what you said, but now we've heard it for ourselves. He had stayed with them. He had talked to them. The royal official believes Jesus before seeing the miracle. John is teaching us here that the highest kind of faith is not dependent on seeing miraculous signs, but on trusting Jesus himself. So I think that begs the question of us this morning, right? Am I going to trust Jesus because I've seen enough evidence or because his word is trustworthy? What's it going to be for each of us this morning? Where's our faith? Certainly we can line up a lot of miracles, but are we going to believe in Jesus because of who he said he was, because of what he did for us? I think that's powerful stuff. One more question. When you hear the word miracle, we've gone through two signs now, a miracle and a sign. When you hear the word miracle, do you think about the wonder itself more, or do you think about what it was meant to show more? And while you answer that, which one do you think John does? Does John focus more in his writing? Does John focus more on the miracle, or does he focus more on the message being said?
He's more on the message.
More on the message. Interesting. I'm sorry? He wrote it so we would believe? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That's the word he uses. He focuses on this word sign. But wouldn't it make more sense? Wouldn't we have more faith? Wouldn't we believe more if we just saw more miracles? We just saw more amazing things happen?
Well, look at Thomas.
They saw it back in the day and didn't believe?
Yeah, Thomas didn't believe until he saw the holes in the sand.
Yeah, very true, very true.
Even though he was there.
Yep.
Got to see the meaning of them in our lives.
Just got to see the meaning of them in our lives. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Correct. Yes, Jesus wanted more than that. Absolutely. He wants you to believe in him because of who he is and who he says he is. I think that's true. I think it's very powerful. Anything else on any of that this morning? So I don't think we have time to dig into the next subject here. Our next subject is Jesus healing the invalid here at this pool of Bethesda, also known as the third sign that John is going to reveal to us here. So your homework for that is, of course, go home, be prepared for that, read about that, and be prepared for the message. What is the message that Jesus is trying to teach us with this sign here? What is the sermon being preached? It's kind of the story that we're getting through all of this. as we're working through John, remember, what is John trying to teach us? John is trying to teach us that Jesus is the Son of God. He is deity. He is who he said he was. How can we believe in those things? John is laying out these 7 signs because of that. So, that's your homework. Study the setting, the healing of the man here at Bethesda. What is the message that Jesus is being preached? Appreciate your all's comments this morning. It's been a good class. Certainly a lot of good comments, a lot of good discussion. I appreciate that very much. Look forward to seeing you on Wednesday.